So bring us on to a film with a much less imaginative poster in New Jack City.
Yes. Now, while it had been a long time since I'd seen it, I always had the idea that I really liked New Jack City. Certainly, seeing it, I guess, around its VHS release for the first time, so possibly not yet a teenager, it was one of the first adult films I saw, with its 18 certificate, its sex and drugs and violence, and its gangsters. As such, I was really looking forward to watching it again, hoping that it would still have the cool menace promised, then and now, by the sunglasses and beret wearing Wesley Snipes on the cover. Snipes plays Nino Brown, who, along with his brother G-Money, Alan Payne, gets in on the ground floor of the crack epidemic and creates a massive drug empire in Harlem from the mid to late 80s, working out of an apartment building they control like a military establishment. Undercover police officers Scotty Appleton, Ice-T, and Nick Peretti, Judd Nelson, of the maverick don't get along with each other sort naturally, are tasked to go undercover into Nino's organisation and obtain the evidence needed to bring him down. Movies have moved on since 1991, and I particularly have moved on since then. New Jack City has not. It's so of its time that it's painful. A time capsule that oozes late 80s, early 90s from its every pore. A blaxploitation film brought to you by MTV. You can see a lot of what the director was aiming for though, and it was certainly trend-setting, casting rappers and having a full hip-hop and R&B soundtrack. However, Mario Van Peebles' attempts to create the Scarface for Black America might have been more successful if it hadn't tried so hard to reference Scarface.
Yeah.
If what he was aiming for, though, was bringing the blaxploitation films that his father Melvin was known for up to date, then he was quite successful, broadening the characters a little and making a noticeably slicker final product, which no doubt contributed to its success commercially and critically at the time. Where it is saved, and I anticipate this being a recurring theme as we go along today, is in Snipes' performance. He's not the most physically imposing person, standing at only around 5'9", but his performances always belie that, and as Nino Brown he's magnetic, absolutely delivering on the menace promised by the poster. The scenes with Nino and his brother G-Money are particularly engaging, and Alan Payne also acquits himself well. It's actually surprising to see that his film career is so scant. The rest of the cast is a mixed bag. The late Bill Nunn is fine, but his turn as the man, the actual credited name, is no Radio Raheem, and while I think Chris Rock does a fine job as the unfortunate Pookie, the truth is that Chris Rock, no matter the role, always seems to be Chris Rock. Judd Nelson is, frankly, and Ice-T tends that way, and certainly relies too heavily on Brad Pitt-style hand movements. Though to be fair to Ice-T, he does have a few moments. As for the plot, it's unremarkable but entertaining enough, though Pookie's plight might have been milked for a little more tension. The police investigation is perhaps the least compelling part, especially compared to the likes of Deep Cover, which came out the next year. That film shares a number of similarities with New Jack City, and while its villain can't hope to compare to Snipes, the undercover cop thing is handled vastly better. In truth though, I think New Jack City doesn't contain any huge faults. Though the out-of-nowhere, ludicrously coincidental revelation about the fate of one character's parent can, as they say, do one, it just suffers now from feeling tired and cliched when it felt much fresher at the time. Still, I continue to find it enjoyable enough to recommend if you feel like watching some more Wesley Snipes. But what say you, Scott?
I agree completely on Snipes' performance. He's clearly the best thing in here by a while, by a good long chalk. I also agree completely about Judd Nelson, who every time he appeared on screen, I asked, why are you in this film? Yes. And no answer was forthcoming, because not only is he awful, it's a character you could easily cut out. I mean, he does literally nothing of any use, and he's, yes, very bad, very poor, very poor. Ice-T's okay. It's just kind of hard to take Ice-T seriously these days. He's been just so thoroughly memed by these sort of SVU screen cap things. It's just difficult to take anything that he says seriously anymore.
I'm unfortunately unaware of any of that, but
look them up. They're pretty funny.
For me.
And as for the rest of the film, it's fine. I'm fairly sure I've not seen this one before now. As you say, definitely a artifact of its era. But I was annoyed with it at points because it seems to be setting up many more interesting things than it actually winds up doing. It seems like it's going to play heavier on the kind of intrigue or them betraying each other. It's like setting up for something a bit more intimate and personal, the way that you think this may kind of come to an end with, the Snipes sort of stealing his brother's girlfriend, all that kind of thing. You think that's going to play out in some way, and it kind of does, but more or less doesn't. Anytime it looks like it's threatening to go somewhere interesting with that, it just has another shootout, which is seems like a kind of cop-out way to do it.
Yeah, it does. It feels... I'm just going to end up saying exactly what you said, Scott. It feels like that they're going to go down sort of the jealousy revenge thing, and it sort of almost becomes inconsequential.
Yes.
It just focuses more on the kind of... But again, it was legitimate enough, and we've seen in other films what the younger brother wanting to have more power, more control, whatever. Yeah. And the jealousy part of it not really playing into it so much.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm waving my hands because again, that works so well in an audio podcast.
I think that's probably about as much as I've got to say about it, to be honest with you. It wasn't a unenjoyable watch. If you're in the market for this kind of thing, it's as long as you can sort of go in expecting that you're not going to get something that's particularly cutting edge and up to date with modern film practices. It was entertaining enough. Certainly, in terms of, again, what we're talking about here, Wesley Snipes is great at it, and it's a performance that you should be seen probably for that alone. The rest of the surrounding material is merely fine. I can't get too excited about recommending that people do it, but if it's the sort of thing that's in your alley, it's a reasonable exemplar of the type. Yeah, that's really all I've got to say about it. I mean, to be honest, actually, earlier today, I was actually questioning whether I had seen this or not. It took me a little while to actually kickstart my brain. Oh, right, yeah, that film. So after less than a week, I've already forgotten most of it, so I'm not going to say that it's going to be an enduring classic for the ages or anything like that. But yeah, it was fine.
Although, to be honest, with your self-confessed issues of memory of late on this podcast, I'm not sure I would particularly consider that necessarily a bad sign. Yeah, the big problem is that Wesley Snipes really is fantastic in it. He's cool and he's menacing, even while wearing some truly ridiculous clothes.
Yes.
For some reason, somehow he makes them work. He doesn't immediately look ridiculous, which says a lot about him. But when he's not on screen, the film really stutters. That's the big problem with it.
Yeah.
Before we move on, we don't have a great deal more to say about New Jack City, but you mentioned shootouts, which I had a bit of a beef with in this film because apparently almost everybody involved went to Stormtrooper school.
Yeah.
There's a hit at a wedding, and people were standing still with machine guns or assault rifles. Can't hit a sodding thing.
Yeah.
And then in the very next scene is a drive-by on motorbikes with apparently a 100% hit rate.
Yes.
It's an odd film in those terms. I don't know if that's just bad filmmaking or maybe that's sort of a legacy of its kind of blaxploitation roots.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar enough with that, John, to know whether maybe that's kind of a trope in those or something. Although it's kind of a trope in any action film where it's convenient that people don't get shot when you don't need them to.
Yeah.
So there's that. We're going to move on to sort of slightly comedic drama, I guess.